This week, the Congressional Executive Commission on China, on which I serve as chair, released its 2019 annual report on human rights and the rule of law in China. The Commission has found that over the last year, the human rights situation in China has worsened, and the rule of law continued to deteriorate. The Chinese government continues to violate international human rights standards, including the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights that it ratified in 2002, and its own constitution. There has been a nationwide crackdown on the legal community, human rights defenders, labor advocates, and citizen journalists. And the Chinese Communist Party has exerted a tighter grip over governance, the judiciary, and society more generally. The Chinese government is also becoming more efficient in the use of advanced technology to control and suppress the people. Nowhere is this more of a concern than in Xinjiang, where we report that key scholars and rights groups provide a strong argument that the crimes against humanity framework applies to the mass internment camps. In Hong Kong, the pro-democracy protests over the last year revealed deep discontent and grievances which continue to grow, in part because the Hong Kong government refuses to address the reasonable demands of the protesters, such as an independent investigation into police misconduct and universal suffrage. Now that the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act has been signed into law, the Trump administration should hold accountable any person who is responsible for arbitrary detention or other gross human rights violations. In Tibet, there is no dialogue for a peaceful settlement. Access is almost impossible, and the Chinese government continues to violate religious freedom, including by claiming that only the government has the authority to select a future 15th Dalai Lama. Moving forward, the China Commission has many recommendations, including developing a U.S. whole-of-government approach and a multilateral diplomatic strategy to elevate and strengthen efforts to promote human rights in China, addressing the abuses in Xinjiang by imposing global Magnitsky Act sanctions, controlling the sale of sensitive technology, and cracking down on the import of forced labor products. Passing strong Uyghur human rights legislation. Bills passed both the House and Senate last year, and we hope to have agreement on a final bill to send to the President in the coming weeks. Passing the Tibetan Policy and Support Act that would apply sanctions on officials who interfere in the process of the reincarnation or succession of the Dalai Lama. And advocating for political and religious prisoners in China. We know that when these specific cases are raised publicly, it can result in improved treatment and better conditions. The annual report includes numerous cases of political and religious detention. We are emphasizing 16 cases that are representative of those detained and sentenced for peacefully exercising their internationally recognized human rights. The Commission has a publicly available political prisoner database that is an essential tool for monitoring and advocating for individual cases. Rising authoritarianism in China is one of the most important challenges of the 21st century. In the coming decades, every global challenge from conflict to poverty to climate change will require a constructive Chinese role that respects and elevates the voices of 1.4 billion people instead of suppressing them. It should be clear that we support a productive U.S.-China relationship, but it is essential that the human rights of all the people of China are respected by their government. The members of the China Commission are clear in the report that U.S. foreign policy should prioritize the promotion of universal human rights and the rule of law, not only to respect and protect basic dignity, but to promote a safer and more prosperous world. Thank you.